doing everything they talk about. You know I'm everything a boss about. Not putting work and gotta toss them out. I'm really biting, they just barking out. I'm really riding, they just parking now. His street, what they talk about. See the big H when I'm walking out. Yeah.
Well. That was a hell of a semifinal round. Yeah, we definitely got our money's worth this weekend. Welcome to the Athletes Forum podcast. Shout out to the locker room. You know the deal. Drop a comment and let's talk about it. We just wrapped up the semifinals in the European League of Football, and it did not disappoint. A lot of great games, obviously 2 great games, and we're going to dive into a little bit. And now we do have a championship here in the European League of football, as 2 teams have officially, punched their ticket to the European League of Football. Both teams making an appearance for their second time in the championship game. One team returning back to the championship game, and one team in the Rhine Fire. Another team looking to secure. Both teams looking to secure their second championship, but another team looking to bounce back after not making it last year in the Vienna Vikings. So we got a lot of great games. The 2 great games we're going to talk about, and I do have some breaking news at the end of the show. So make sure you stay and tune in. Per usual, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel. Let's get right to it. First game we got on the books, Saturday. Paris Musketeers traveled to play the Vienna Vikings. It was evident that it was going to be a high-scoring game early, the way these 2 teams came out attacking and firing. And, Ben Holmes even mentioned it. He had to empty the clip, and that's what they did. Let me say this about the Vienna Vikings. I think this was kind of a statement win for the team, to the organization, to the fans, to the league, that they've heard is they're gonna have too much time off. They play in a weak division. They don't really play anybody in general, and now they're going up against a team who plays in maybe a stronger division, rightfully so, and has only lost to one team twice this year. So how will they fare? How's the matchup? Are they healthy? Do they have the guys to compete? Man, listen, they made a statement from the jump. They came out firing all cylinders. It was evident that they were gonna test that secondary. They wanted to throw the ball deep, and they were attacking downfield. They weren't dinking and dunking. They had the opportunity to maybe run the rock a little bit, but that wasn't their main priority. They wanted 6, right? And then defensively, again, the defense that is familiar with Zach. A lot of those guys that played against Zach 2 years ago are still there, so they are familiar with Zach. Kind of knew what they were getting. And they had a good first half. It got a little interesting in the second half, but they had a good first half. But I mean, when you look at the Vienna Vikings, first of all, let me say this: Ben Holmes played his best game this year against one of the top 4 teams. So everything that we say about Vienna and their competition, just know that this team can compete with the top of the teams. And Ben Holmes competed. And another thing about Ben Holmes that we didn't know, or maybe didn't know of, is Ben got a little mobile. Ben got a little jiggy out there on the field, running a little bit, almost ran for 100. I know he rushed for a touchdown, and that was kind of a factor that I guess was unaccounted for by the Paris. They did not think that they were going to get that type of run game from Ben. Vikings ran the ball a little bit with Curry. I know he had 22 carries, a little under 100, but Ben they were going to attack the secondary for Paris. And Ben went for 23 for 40, 385 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 rushing. Everyone got involved. Reese Horn had over 150 receiving yards. Welcome back, Beer Bomber. I know he had 3 touchdowns. These guys are a matchup nightmare. It was good to see him getting back into the fold and peaking at the right time. But Noah Torway connected on a couple of long, deep passes. Kimmy got in the mix a little bit. Everyone got involved on that Vikings offense, and it was a true team effort. All right, O-line did a great job. They only gave up 1 sack against a pretty good Paris front. I think, they wanted to state their dominance in this game, and they did that for a large part of it. But when you look at Paris' side, they started a little slow first half, and that was kind of disappointing, because you would expect them to go score for score, especially with what they have been capable of doing all year. But we didn't see that. But in the second half, credit to Zach, credit to those guys. I know Takadam did a good job of getting in the mix. I know he had about 2 touchdowns. Anthony Mahungu made some big plays. LaRose made some catches as well. They kind of kept Austin Mitchell in check for somewhat. But again, at the end of the day, the Vikings did what they were supposed to do. Defensively for the Vikings, played well first half, second half got a little interesting, and we've seen that a couple times throughout the season. I don't know if you're gonna be able to afford that heading into the championship game against a Ryan Fire team, especially a team that knows how to finish, like we just saw today. So we'll see how they tighten things up in that capacity. Paris, what a great year for Paris. Second year, made it to the semis. Great organization, great. It sounds like they have a solid foundation, a good core group of guys, on the field and off the field. Paris is going to be here for a while. I think their next step is how they take the division in the West. You got Madrid that's on the rise. You got Cologne. If they could keep it up, may sneak in there. That could win a couple games. And obviously, you got the beast in the fire. But Paris is here to stay. And I think they show that, listen, we're just as good and we belong in the top 4, which is kind of like what we thought all year. One guy that I do want to give a shout out to is this guy, Benjamin Straight. This guy is a baller, man. I know he led the league he led the team in tackles. He made a couple big plays, made a great breakup play on Anthony Mahungu later in the game. Ben Straight is a straight baller. I want to give you your flowers, Ben, because you don't get talked about as much as maybe a lot of people should recognize, like DBs, not just American but European and homegrowns. Ben is a baller. I had to give my 2 cents to Ben. I think going back to the game a little bit defensively for Paris, I think. Again, we already talked about they didn't really account for Ben in the run game, but another thing in the secondary was like those guys were going to attack. Ben was going after 26 edge Idris. He caught Mace flat-footed on a couple deep throws. Chandler had a couple. Chandler Jones had a couple miscommunication issues with his DB counterparts. Like Vienna Vikings knew how to attack Paris. And that's what they did, and they end up pulling the game off. They win 47-31, and they're advancing into the ELF championship for a second time. All right, for a second time. And what does that mean when the Vikings win? That means we're going to get a matchup that we haven't seen this year. And we're going to get a matchup that maybe we thought we might have gotten last year, or maybe some people would have hoped we got last year. Because, again, Vikings haven't played the Surge or the Fire this year. But we're going to get one of them. And that team is the Rhine Fire. The Rhine Fire find a way to pull it off. This was a great team win because Surge were pretty much in control for all 4 quarters. Again, rain came into effect, a little bit of uncharacteristic, fumbles from Jadrian, center exchanges. I know Glenn fumbled maybe 1 or 2 times. Surge capitalized on some of those. But the Surge... See, locker room, let me ask you this. Did the Fire win this game or did the Surge lose this game? I'll repeat that. When you think about this game, if you watch it, Marcus, I'm sorry this had to happen to you. But think about this, locker room. Did the Fire win this game or did the Surge lose this game? Because when you look at the game in totality, Surge, it was clear they were going after Tony Anderson often and early. He didn't. For me, I don't know anything official. Just judging by how he didn't look right. Tackling looks like he was trying to avoid that one shoulder that looks like it had a wrap on. It looks like those guys were trying to go after and attack Tony Anderson. Surge defense, they came ready to play. They weren't really giving up big plays for the most part. A lot of mostly dink and dunks and intermediate routes. Unfortunately, ended up hurting them, at some point down the road. But also, the Surge should have won this game. I guess is what I'm getting at. When you even look at the second quarter, there was a series of turnovers where I think Glenn fumbles, Riley throws the interception to Jansen for the Fire, who again had 2 interceptions this game. He played it very well. I got to give him his flowers too. My DBs, they came to play. All right, they came to play. The very next play, Jason throws an interception to Chad. All right. Surge get the ball back. I think they will eventually score. But ultimately, it just shows great play from great players and great teams, great coaching, and it shows like the quality that this game was and should have been in the semifinals. Kantar had a big game, made a lot of great cuts. He was really seeing the holes in the game pretty well for the Surge. The Fire showed up when they needed to show up. The third quarter started a little slow. They weren't able to really get going until late in the third, going into the fourth. And then things got a little tricky for the Surge because the Fire's defense, they were bending but not breaking. Right, it was that 20-13. And then what was it? I'm looking at my notes here. Fire would eventually get a score, making it 23-20. Riley throws an interception. Hold on. I'm trying to remember how this game so Fire would eventually score, make it 23-20. And then we get to a point where the Surge had the ball. Randy Schrader been asking for a 2-minute drill all season. He's getting it. He got it in this game. I know I owe you some push-ups. But yeah, Fire had the ball late in the game, trying to put Surge had the ball late in the game, trying to put the Fire away. Riley throws an interception to one of the best safeties in the league, Omari Williams. That leads to a field goal, which eventually leads to overtime. We get into overtime. Surge had the ball first, and they're driving, right, about to score, and then another interception by Jansen in the end zone. Riley tried to was scrambling to the right, tried to throw a ball to Darnell Stewart, gets intercepted in the end zone. Fire get the ball. Jadrian leads the team down the field, doing what he does best, running when he has to, protecting the ball. And yeah, they score. They score on the famous tight end, sneak the tight end out cross field. He scores and walks to the end zone, and now the Fire are going to the championship to play the Vienna Vikings. So those two teams punched their ticket to the championship game, and it's going to be a good one. And we'll get into it and we'll break it down. And now that gets me to my breaking news that I wanted to share with you guys. So I've been doing this since year one in the European League of Football. Up till now, it's not going to change. Athletes Forum Podcast ELF Championship Media Week is back starting September 15th. We're going to have a ton of great guests throughout the show. I'm going to try to get some players that are playing in the game, get some former players to come in and break down the game, get some media members involved and talk about the game, and we're going to make some picks, giving you everything you need to know leading up to that championship game. So tune in, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, let's talk ball, share this video with a friend, share the platform with a friend. This is our podcast. We like to talk it out. Shout out to the Rhein Fire, shout out to the Vienna Vikings for doing what you got to do, taking care of business. And now they are heading, one team will be a two-time ELF champion. All right. Should we start it now? Who do you got? Rhein Fire, Vienna Vikings. Who do you got?